Shamsi, I made you host. Are you here? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am here. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can share your
Okay.
presentation. Please go ahead.
Okay. Uh, Wait a minute. Okay. Uh, Hello for all guests. And our topic, I would like to talking about the economic relations between the United Kingdom and Azerbaijan. And of course, we will discuss the possible consequences of the Brexit. And we studied with Professor Mehmet Dikkaya, and I'm going to show you the content. The first, we will discuss the United Kingdom and Azerbaijan relations in the context of historical background, and second, we will discuss the economic relations, especially trade relations and capital movements, and the third, we will examine, or we will discuss the United Kingdom and Azerbaijan relations after the Brexit. So, for introduction, the bilateral relation. At the end of the Cold War, we know that the European Union couldn't establish deep and strategically important relations with the South Caucasus region, and especially Azerbaijan. Therefore, it is intense political agenda. But the United Kingdom and Azerbaijan relations began to be established in the early 1990s. For Azerbaijan, especially for Azerbaijan, establishing relations with the United Kingdom were based on mutual interest and was one of the most important steps for Azerbaijan integration into the world economy. In the terms of the United Kingdom, making economic and political relations with Azerbaijan has a key role in using Caspian energy reserves and bringing them to the world market. And that's why establishing relations with the United Kingdom accelerated the integration of Azerbaijan into the world economy. And for this paper, we divided the relations in three phases. As you can see, the initial phase, second phase, and third phase. In the first phase, this phase starts from the end of the Cold War and to the middle of the 1993. In this period, bilateral diplomatic relations were established. For example, in these phases, the British Petroleum officials and the United Kingdom government officials came to the Azerbaijan. In this period, the main issue of the bilateral relations was the establishment of diplomatic relations and recognition of the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan by the United Kingdom and the use of Azerbaijani energy reserves. But in this phase, deep and comprehensive relations couldn't make because of Azerbaijani government's distant attitude related oil and gas agreements and because of internal political turmoil and the change of Azerbaijani government. The second phase covered the between the 1994 and 1998. The fundamental developments which make up today's economic relations took place in this period, especially in this period. The main objectives in relations with the United Kingdom and Azerbaijan was introducing Azerbaijan to business world in the United Kingdom and attracting British capital to Azerbaijan and benefiting from United Kingdom's experience in the field of oil and natural gas sectors. But especially the third phase is important for bilateral relations, Azerbaijan and United Kingdom relations. And this phase covers deep economic and strategic partnership between the United Kingdom and Azerbaijan. this phase covers from 1998 to today. And we know the contract of the century was signing in the 1994, and that's why since the signing of contract of the century, bilateral strategic partnership and deep and comprehensive economic relations between the United Kingdom and Azerbaijan established in the third phase. And now we can continue. As you can see, the foreign trade dynamics of Azerbaijan in 2010, between the 2010 and 2019. And today we know Azerbaijani economy is mostly dependent on oil sector. According to 2019 data, the share of the oil sector was 36% in the country's GDP. But almost 90% of the total export and 47% of the budget revenues belong to the oil sector. Booming the oil production helped Azerbaijan to take advantage from its enormous natural resource wealth. Comparing with the 1990, as you can see, in 2010, the total export of Azerbaijan was $33 billion. In the relevant period, I mean from 1990 to 2010, import volume raised 6 times, from 1 billion to 6 billion, and export increased almost 8 times. And okay, as you show on the graph, Azerbaijan is a net exporter country, but the fluctuations in the trade volume depends on the general progress in oil prices. And this trend impacts the Azerbaijan and United Kingdom's trade relations. And now we can observe the trade turnover between Azerbaijan and United Kingdom, and we can see that the export to United Kingdom from Azerbaijan is more volatile. The main reason of this trend is general progress in oil market and oil prices. But the share of the United Kingdom is less in the total amount of Azerbaijani export, and it volatile between the 0 and 2.40. But the import share of the United Kingdom, the share of the United Kingdom, the import volume in the Azerbaijan is also volatile between the 5% and 1%. Total trade volume between Azerbaijan and United Kingdom was almost $700 million. And we can see the bilateral trade relations depends on oil sector, and the main reason of the volatile trade volume is oil prices. Now we can examine the composition of trade relation between Azerbaijan and United Kingdom. In the left side, we can see the export from Azerbaijan. The main share of the export is, of course, raw materials, and especially oil or petroleum products. And the second is consumer goods. The third one is capital goods. But the import If we analyze the left side, import from the United Kingdom, we can see the difference between the composition of trade relations. And the first part belong to consumer goods, and the second biggest share belong to capital goods, which from import from the United Kingdom, and of course the raw material is the last one. Yeah. Now we can analyze the foreign investment structure in Azerbaijan, and then we will analyze the capital movement between two countries. And now it's possible to say that the foreign investment come to Azerbaijan with the contract of the century, which signed in 1994. In the first years of the independence, due to Karabakh War, uh, deep economic depression in Azerbaijan, and domestic political problems, prevented foreign direct investment to Azerbaijan. After 1994, British capital also start to come to Azerbaijan. In Azerbaijani economy, especially, has attracted most of the foreign capital. Yeah, data is here. Yeah, attract the most foreign capital, almost more than 90% after the millennium. The share of the oil sector in foreign investment direct to the country is quite large, as you can see. For example, in the 2000, the more than 80% of foreign direct investment belonged to the oil sector, and the other part, 20% of the is belong to non-oil sector. Over the years, foreign investment in the form of financial loans, we can see, increased, but the biggest share is again directed to the oil sector. The same trend continued in 2019, we can see here. In 2019, almost 78% of the foreign direct investment went to the oil sector, and 22% of the foreign direct investment went to the non-oil sector. And now we can see the foreign investment directed to the fixed capital by country, and we can see the share of the countries. And United Kingdom is the biggest investor in Azerbaijan. And Turkey is second, United States is third, and Japan is fourth, and others. British investment in Azerbaijan come mostly in the form of, as you can see, fixed investment in oil and gas sector. The general disruption of such investment by country in Azerbaijan doesn't differ between 20, 20 years. The United Kingdom's share in total fixed capital investments between the 1995 and 2009 has always been more than 20%. We can observe the same trend in the 2019. Therefore, we can argue that the main determinants of capital flows between two countries, United Kingdom and Azerbaijan, are long-term mega energy project and fixed investment. And now, yes, in non-oil sector, United Kingdom, we can see the second. The first one is Turkey, and the other countries have less shares in the non-oil sector. Between the 1995 and 2009, the United Kingdom, we see the leader in terms of the investment in Azerbaijan. The total amount of the investments over than 27 billion. Today, there are about more than more than 500 companies with British capital in Azerbaijan, and most of them operating in oil sector. Currently, great importance is attached to the development of bilateral relations in the non-oil sector, especially renewable energy sector. About 10 business forums and investment summits have been held between Azerbaijan and the United Kingdom. Despite being the largest investor in Azerbaijan oil sector, and we saw the United Kingdom ranks second after Turkey in the non-oil sector, and total investment portfolio was under the $2 billion. And conclusion, we observed that the United Kingdom is the biggest investor in Azerbaijan's oil sector. And we know that from the literature, these types of the investment aren't affected by the political decisions because they have a strategic nature. When the foreign trade flows between the two countries are examined, it has been determined that almost 90% of the export from Azerbaijan are petroleum products. So, on the import side, it has been determined that the mostly capital, consumption, and intermediate good constitute 97% of the total imports from the United Kingdom. And these factors gives hint that between trade relations and capital movements between the two countries depends on mostly oil sector. The most important factor affecting the trade between the two countries is oil prices, consumer demands, and companies' investment expenditure. And now, the other conclusions, the capital flows between the two countries we observed do not overreact to Brexit because of their natures. Initiatives to deepen cooperation in the field of renewable energy between Azerbaijan and United Kingdom have been identified. And these initiatives give hints that the British capital will increase in the non-oil sector of Azerbaijan, considering the bilateral trade relations are more dependent on the oil trade. We observed this, and there is a possibility of signing a preferential trade agreement, not free trade agreement between Azerbaijan and United Kingdom. And we know Azerbaijan has the Dutch disease, and that's why Azerbaijan doesn't sign the free trade agreements with other countries, despite losing its most important supporter in the European Union institutions after Brexit. Azerbaijan remains a new investment area for British companies whose activities were restricted within the European Union. And we will expect that Azerbaijan can be a new area for British companies and British capital after the Brexit. And finally, we think that Brexit's impact on the bilateral relations is less, not more. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for your insightful presentation. Is there any question? I guess there is no question.